So this is just briefly what we're going to do. It's like the number 5. So we're going to come at the very, very top at Picton, and we're going to go to the north and go to Nelson, and then we go west to Westport, down to Greymouth. And now we're doing the middle part of the island, like the number 5, and we'll go down all the way down to, Christchurch and then Dunedin. And then at that point in time, you're going to see another map, the same map again. So the first part of this little discussion or our travel blog is going to be like the number 5. And by Dunedin, we'll see another, and we'll talk to that part later. Sorry. Thank you.
Remember that your cursor will show up on the map. So yes,
okay.
So if you
show your screen, there we go.
Sorry, I mentioned Anita's name. Her husband's Leo, and he's a big help in the whole thing. So
okay, so you got the idea. We're coming in by ferry from Wellington on the North Island. For those of you who joined us a few weeks ago, we were down there in December 2018 to end of February 2019, going in and out of Auckland, and we rented a car in New Zealand. So we were driving around, took it on the ferry, and we spent most of our time, 2/3 of the time, with people in a travel club. So this is heading out. This is on the ferry heading from North Island to South Island. And this is some oyster traps along the way, an oyster farm. And this is us when we landed in the South Island. And we were fortunate enough to be with some people who had bicycles that we could use, because we do a lot of cycling. So we took them up on their offer, and you can see in the background there's some lovely vineyards.
So in essence, we bicycled for about 3 days. We took advantage of the fact that we didn't have to, play around with rentals, and that's how we got around this part of the North Island, the South Island.
This is actually a playground. You can see some of the playground kid items over here for young kids, but there's 2 or 3 places that we went to in New Zealand because we have young grandchildren. We really pay attention, but they have all these neat little parks for the 2 and 3 5 and 6-year-olds to play and learn how to ride their bikes and stay on the right side of the road, go around the traffic circle and everything else. So we just thought it was really neat, fun for the kids. And there is signs on the road, so even though we were driving and walking and cycling a lot, we could always remember to get to the right side of the road. This is some of the scenery, the wineries that we saw in this north part of the South Island. A lot of wineries in that area. We went to this one particular one called Wither Hills, sat back and enjoyed a glass of wine there. Beautiful countryside, flat, easy for cycling. There is lots of trails in the mountains for mountain biking as well. So there's lots of people cycling in that area. And this was not a small winery. They had huge vats back there for the wine making. From the east side of the North Island, we went across towards Nelson. This is just one of the parks, the areas we stopped at along the way. It's called the Rye Valley Forest, and just did some walking in that area. Like the North Island, it's very green, very lush. And this is the fern that we were, you'll see all over the place, and it's on their map. This little box back here, they were trying to trap something called stoats, little creatures. But the fern is what is in the picture here, because this is the silver fern. And you turn the green fern over, and this is what the color is on the back. It's the well-known, it's the symbol of the New Zealand, the silver fern. And we talked last time about the competition they had for the maps, and this is one of our favorite entries that we saw. Sorry, it's for the flag. Yes, competitions for the flag, and that's with the silver fern on it. As we carried on, we're heading towards Nelson, and beautiful. That's Leo down there in the water. It's a beautiful river for swimming, so we took a break and went for a little swim. And then we headed across, heading west towards Nelson, and then we went up a little bit to an area called Motika. And this is the Nagura Keys.
So we've done a little bit of caving, and we probably did about 13 different caves on our entire trip when we were in New Zealand. So we did several in the North Island and we did several in the South Island, but there were some that were really spectacular here in the South Island. This actually was some of the bones of the moa bird that went extinct because they were so easy to, you know, basically hit it over the head with a rock or a stick. And anyway, so it became extinct, and that's some of what we saw in that cave.
And this is the countryside. When you see this type of rock formations around, there's usually lots of caves around. We saw this a lot in North and South Island of New Zealand. Now, then we went into Nelson. They have an amazing museum called the WOW Museum, or World of Wearable Art. So I'll just show you some of the World of Wearable Art pictures that they had there. And this is international. It started in New Zealand, but they have now these displays all over the world. Just amazing, amazing art creations. And for those fellows who don't want to spend time in the world of wearable art, the other part of the museum has all these neat cars. So we spent quite a bit of time in this museum. It was quite amazing.
So this would be again at the north, right at the very, very
Nelson.
top of the South Island. So we're going around Nelson, and because they have these tsunamis, here are some of the signs we would see often. This is Nelson once again, the beaches. And then up ahead here, we'll show you something that's quite unique. There's not very many of these in the world. It has to do with the ocean current and a cliff that's eroding away. So as the cliff erodes away, the ocean current carries all these boulders. So that's what this, it's a park because it's quite a rare event in the world. And so it's a boulder park.
And those boulders are about the size of a football or about the size of a soccer ball, some of the larger ones. And this was actually taken from our host's house, and that's the Boulder Peninsula that was out there. It was probably stretched about 4 kilometers long. And they had to make sure that it was over to the left is where Nelson and the port is. They had to make sure it didn't interfere with the shipping over there. From Nelson, we headed west, right over to the west coast of the island. We went to Westport and then down to Greymouth. We spent a few days at Greymouth. And we did a lot of cycling and walking along there as well. You can see how thick the vegetation is. Like there's just no way that you could cut off this path and try and find your way through the side. It was just very, very thick. But the path was beautiful. We had some beautiful views along the way. We cycled along by the ocean and some of the inlets there. The one day we were particularly going out, it was very, very windy. I don't know if you can tell from that storm. It wasn't the sign particularly, but there was a big, big storm and winds coming through. We did not see any penguins on our walk, but we looked for them. Right out at the end of the peninsula there was a little coffee shop, very well placed if you need a little break along the way. This is the wind coming in and the oceans, and around this corner over here is where the ships would have came in, and we saw one boat trying to come in, and it was just, the waves were just going right over the front of it. It was very windy day. I would not want to be on the ocean that day. Going further south, we were just driving along at this point and just following the ocean as it goes down on the west side of the island. And we came to something called the Pancake Rocks. And I thought this was very unique. I've never seen anything like this before. Perhaps there's some other places of the world, but I had not seen this before. Just miles and miles and miles of this Pancake Rocks, they called them.
Do you know how they were formed?
No, I don't. And I didn't look that up either. That would be interesting. We didn't see any of the water spurting through, but there's very deep channels and there's signs along the way, like sort of, they're quite blunt, like, don't be an idiot because we're not going to save you if you fall over. This is on the trip to, from Greymouth, we headed east. So we're heading now towards Christchurch. We went through something called the Arthur's Pass. And at that particular point, we saw one of the Kia birds. These are parrots, a type of parrot, quite a large bird. not really too bright, but this bird went out in the middle of the road to pick up something while all the traffic was whizzing by him, but he made it safely off the middle of the road as well. From there, we carried on. It was beautiful countryside. Arthur's Pass is a very narrow, steep pass. If you've gone through parts of the Rockies, it's really steep and narrow. But coming to the other side of that, it's quite open and a beautiful drive through this part towards Christchurch. We did stop along the way at this particular cave because we had heard about it when we were actually back in Nelson. Somebody had said, well, if you go down this direction, you got to stop at this cave. So we're going to show you some pictures. It takes about an hour to walk through. So there's some folks going in and you'll see us entering as well, or some other people in front of us. So you enter at one end and you get wet up to about your waist at the time we went in. Then you call along. There's a river flowing this way. The river flows this way and it's a pretty strong river. And at some points, the cave is only about 4 feet wide and the water is rushing at you at a pretty good pace. So you go along here, there's a 1 meter thing, a 1.5 meter, another 1 meter climb up and over there, another meter there, another meter there, and there's actually a ladder in the end. You're in pitch black the whole time. And this one was a little hard, that 1.5. There's actually somebody came up to behind me at that point and said, do you want a little help? And I said, yeah. So he just gave me a little lift to get up that 1.5 meter step. So this is what it looked like going down towards the water. And we just walked along the side and this is the water coming out. There's the big cave entrance. And this is the folks in front of us that were going through. Once they got about 20 feet in front of us, we never saw them again. I don't think at any point we never saw anybody in front of us. So you can see they've got on their lights. We basically stripped down to just shorts and a t-shirt, our headlamps on top, and I think the key for our car. And that's about all we had with us. There's looking back to the outside. And then we went the kilometer or an hour walk through the cave. And that's what the water was like. We couldn't take pictures, obviously. We were inside the cave, it was wet. We didn't take anything with us, but it was a very neat walk.
So now we're in Christchurch, and this whole area is basically a launching pad for the people that are involved with research programs on Antarctica. And so there's all kinds, the French are there, the England is there. There's a number one. This one is particularly the US. This is the museum, but the US component of their program is just across the street. So that's their base. So this is the actual museum to deal with Antarctica, and there's all kinds of stuff with it. We're so used to seeing it from the other side. We're used to seeing it from North America. So this is it. This is Antarctica being displayed from the other side of the world. And there they had penguins and a number of things. They had a little room. They had a room for people to go in to feel the cold. Well, I'm from Northern Canada, right? They had this. So I didn't go into the room, but they had this ice bucket. And the competition was to see if you could hold your hand in this bucket of freezing water for a minute. And I think I did it like for 3.5 minutes because I thought, well, it's really not that much of a challenge here, folks. But it was interesting, it was okay. So now these are the penguins. So now this is obviously the end of that museum, but we're still in Christchurch, which is an amazing city. These are the trees in this park that we crossed over. These are some of the buildings in Christchurch. There's obviously an English school, like private school or college here. It's just amazing. And these are some of the facades we saw because of the earthquake. The place just got really beat on, and so that they decided to try to keep some of the storefronts and some of the facades. So this is the extent of we didn't see this all the time, but it shows you how much they're trying to keep the shape of the historical buildings in what they want to preserve them. We really like this little place because there's the tram car and it's coming and going, and there's a number of places telling you to watch out for this tram car. And the housing was, they had a commercial area, and just above it, there's 2 or 3 floors. I really like this place. And these are some of the characters we saw here. Like the whole place had a lot of feel to it. So there's a number of other shots that didn't make it in. I thought that this again is Christchurch. These are some of the things we see, and I thought that deserved like a plaque or a memorial or something, because it showed the destruction and how people had to change their lives. I mean, they were going to build this place, it never got built, and instead down it came.
The earthquake was actually in 2011, February of 2011, and we were there in January of 2019. So 8 years later. We did take a ride. This is Leo in the kayak there, and we kayaked down some of the Avon River there. From Christchurch, we headed further south to a town called Oamaru. And this was a lot of very interesting. It's done as an old Victorian town. The port, there was a large port there, and they were sending out a lot of limestone. But the port closed in 1970, so they had to develop some other things. So they developed tourism. They had a lot of these beautiful, beautiful buildings around there. And there is a blue penguin colony close by, but we didn't go to see it. This again is some of the very interesting things they have for children's playgrounds. And another one of the little centers for the kids to learn and practice their cycling. But it's just had some very neat, interesting stores. This is one I'm sure you all know about Shackleton, who was across the Antarctic, and this is his advert for find some people to help him. Men wanted for a hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, but honor and recognition if in case of success. And we all know what happened to him and his crew. There is a replica of the boat that he took. And this is just in the Victorian part of the town, just some of the very unusual sort of things. A penny farthing bicycle up there. But it's interesting because now, as well as the old Victorian town, and they used to have a lot of big festivals and people dressed in Victorian ways and doing various things, they now have an area of punk rock, or steampunk, I should say. And this is just some of the things in the Steampunk Museum. That's a wall of mirrors that probably some of you have seen in other places as well. From Oamaru, we headed a little bit further south. We were looking for a place called the Riverstone Restaurant, or Riverstone Kitchen. Now, again, this is a restaurant we heard about when we were up in the North Island. We heard about it from 2 or 3 people, said, well, if you get over there, you've got to go to this restaurant. So next to the restaurant was a big garden space and this castle that wasn't quite open. So the people that owned the garden space were past farmers, and the lady there wanted to have a castle. So she built herself a castle, and they built the lake around it. So it was very interesting to see. And the garden space had lots of what do you call those? Ornaments. No, what do you call those? Peacocks. Peacocks, yeah. Got the name of that bird. Peacocks, and the intertwined branches of the, it looks like it could be a bamboo of some sort. Very interesting cloud formations. We did go to the restaurant. It was excellent. And we were staying with some travel club people. We're just a few kilometers away, and we're good friends of the lady who was building the castle. And they had a small house, but they also had this bus, their travel bus in the yard. And they said, well, do you want to sleep in the house? Do you want to sleep in the bus? We said, oh, no, we'll take the bus. And so that was just what the inside was like, done up as an old English type of bus. It was a lot of fun.
It's like being in a mini English pub or in a gypsy wagon. It's just, you would not believe that. It was just so wonderful, the decor just inside of this little bus.
And we had a lot of fun with them. And I did get an email from her about 6-8 months later to say that the castle was open. They had finished it. They were had opened it. And I think they were looking at actually renting it out. That's something I guess I'll have to look up and see. So this is a little bit further south of Oamaru. It's called the Motika boulders. So these are quite large boulders, just natural boulders in the rock. Some of them have broken open, and some of them are quite large. Like this is in the bank still. It's probably about 6 feet top and bottom. So they're quite large boulders down there, and the natural thing. For anybody who's seen the South Island at the very south, you'll probably recognize this as the train station in Dunedin. Very classic design. And across from the street, for those who like chocolate, there was a Cadbury chocolate place. This was now closed down from a few years before we got there. And Whitaker's was the primary chocolate that was now being made in New Zealand. But this is back to the train station, the old ticket place. It was just a very interesting place.
Okay, this is, again, we're in the South Island, so their most famous beer is Spites from Dunedin, and I quite enjoyed this. But the whole, North Island, South Island thing kind of really, there's it's a play on the two different islands in New Zealand, but Dunedin to me really represented the South Island, and particularly this beer, because it's, they identify with it as well. The Southerners do. This is the old Dunedin brewery, but they changed this portion of it into a restaurant. And these are the actual dividers between you and the other patrons. So on the other side of this wall is another table, other people eating at their restaurant in the Spates restaurant.
Then we go on to the first church of Otago, Otago being that district of, or that area of New Zealand. And there's a beautiful, beautiful church that was there. So that was the first church that was ever built in that area. And from our hosts, again, we walked up to the top of this little mountainside. So what we're looking at here is the port of Dunedin, a very large port down there. And again, beautiful, beautiful countryside, lovely trails for walking. This is a particular street in Dunedin called Baldwin Street, and it looks pretty steep, and it is very steep. It's the world's steepest street, as a matter of fact. And while we're at the top, this is a sign at the top, and there was a car that actually came up it. But here's what it looks like going down. So there's a very steep section there. From there, we went a little bit south. We drove a little bit south of Dunedin, but like only about 5 miles south. And there was this place there called Tunnel Beach. And it's a park as well. So a nice, long, easy path going down. And then at the bottom, to get down to the very beach, there was this tunnel that the people who had owned it. So back in 1876, it was owned by John Cargill, who was a local politician. And he had a family and he wanted his daughters to be able to access the nice beach there. So they carved this tunnel through the sandstone. So it's 72 steps down now. And at high tide, you wouldn't really be able to get to the beach at the bottom. But it was a lower tide when we were there, and there's some of the beautiful beach and the rock formations, sandstone formations. There's me on my way back up the hill. So it's a good half-hour walk down. It's again fairly steep at parts, but it was a nice walk to go along. And this is one of the ladies we were staying with, milking her goats the next morning before we headed out. Great folks from there. So now we're heading from Dunedin, we're heading a little bit north and west. We're going through an area that's known actually for its agricultural area. And also there was a big power station along the way there. And this is just an old town that we stopped in, look around, but you can see it was the old kind of frontier gold mining, silver mining type of town. And a little bit further north, getting closer to Wanaka and Queenstown, it really reminded me of the Okanagan Valley where I grew up, and all the peaches and fruit. And there was a lot of fruit stands along the road as we went. So we've come from Dunedin, which is just down here. We've come up through Alexander, up to Cromwell that we just saw. We went up to Wanaka, down to Queenstown and around back. And that's what we're going to look at next, is that area. Then we're going to go up through here to Twizel, which is at Lake Pumakai, Mount Cook, yeah, Lake Pumakai, and on to Lake Tepico, and then down through Geraldine. We went up to Kaikoura, and then back up to Blenheim, and took the ferry back to the North Island. So this is just the road side, the look as we were driving between Wanaka and Queenstown. We did kind of a smaller road, not the main road down, because again, our hosts were able to tell us that this was a good road to take down. And it was just a pretty little drive. Again, lots of agricultural area. As we got close to Queenstown though, like from about I don't know, might not have been that far in distance, but from about the last 20 miles probably took us 45 minutes to get through. It was just absolutely packed. Queenstown, of course, is your entrance to all the west coast and the fjords and the hiking and traveling over there. So a lot of people fly into Dunedin or Christchurch and just go straight over to Queenstown to do their visit over there. And it was extremely busy in town. Now, this particular Starbucks coffee shop, we had to take a picture because our youngest daughter used to work there. And she was there for, about 6 months working there. And while we were there, she lives in Calgary, Alberta now. So while we were there, we took a picture or we actually gave her a phone call and showed her around where we were sitting. And she just thought that was pretty neat that we were back in the place that she had once worked at. So this is the lake down there, Lake Wakatipu, and lots of commercial areas along there.
This is one of the signs I found quite interesting. Like, we saw lots of stuff when we were traveling, but these are the things that I kind of remember about Queenstown because it's a very touristic town. The playgrounds, again, we're paying attention because we have grandchildren. So the playgrounds in New Zealand were amazing, absolutely incredible. This is the same lake that we talked about earlier. So this is part of Queenstown. We're just looking back across towards it.
And you can take, this is a commercial or a tourist steamboat that you can take a ride on. That's some more of the lake. So you can see they have all kinds of tours out of Queenstown. Some neat carvings. You can see this is just an interesting little wood art to hold up this long trunk there, or long thing. Now this one, I don't know, there must be some football fans in the crowd, but you notice it's not Super Bowl Sunday. It's already Monday by the time you get to Super Bowl over there. So we weren't there on February 4th, but we had the signs up. We thought, oh, what fun. Should have been there on the Monday the 4th. And again, just some of the cypress trees that are there along the parkway. And this would have been along the route that my daughter used to walk along every day going to her work. So she recognized some of that as well. Now, some of you also may recognize this. We're back in Wanaka right now, and this tree is a very famous tree that grows in Lake Wanaka near the beaches there. And in fact, it's so famous that they bring busloads of tourists over there and they all come out and take their pictures. But we were staying close by. Again, our host lived quite close by, and we walked by this on a regular basis because we did about a 4-kilometer walk down the side of the lake here to some lovely gardens like that. While we were in Wanaka, we went to this very interesting place that had an illusion center. So this is just some of the things that we saw at the illusion center that we thought were rather interesting. That's Teach and Learn, if you see the reflection there. And then there's a room that made you look very tiny or very large. And then they had a really interesting maze outside that took us probably at least an hour to work our way through and find our way from one spot to the next.
The idea was kind of like a wooden fort. And you have 4 towers in 4 different corners. So you can see one of the towers over there. And then you have this massive bridge that goes across from one side to the other. So there are 4 of these towers, and you're supposed to get from one to another in a particular order. And it's really quite complicated. It took us a while to sort it out. I think it took us like about an hour and 15 minutes, which is pretty respectable. But I mean, I'd love to do it a second time, but and it was really interesting. We quite enjoyed this whole thing.
Yeah,
we've had a chance to do a few of those in other places in the world, so it was nice.
How tall were those fences?
Sorry?
How tall were the dividers? Could you see over them?
No,
Well,
no, they're
you-
about 6 feet
They're
tall.
about, yeah, they're about 6 feet tall, and but you can see, I mean, it's not that hard. There's lots of room to walk in. It's just, you just don't know where the exit is. And when you go up to the bridge, you can see where you're supposed to go, but as soon as you go down, you kind of lost your perspective. So it's,
It was well done. We've been in other mazes, and this one is one of the best we've ever been in.
Oh, good.
Now, this is a one-lane bridge, and we took a picture because we're just leaving Wanaka and heading up towards Twizel, I guess it is, and the lakes. But we saw a lot of one-lane bridges in New Zealand. So even though this is a sort of a major road, it's still a one-lane bridge, and that was not unusual. So this is just a couple pictures of the countryside as we head up towards the lakes. So this is Mount.
Driving now, right?
Yes,
You're
we're
driving. Okay.
yes, we're driving on the left-hand side of the road. Yeah. This is Mount Cook in the background. So it's at the, or Aoraki, it's also called. It's the end of Lake Pukaki. And beautiful, beautiful glacier type of, there's a closer up of it, glacier type of water. And then there's a big canal coming out the back of it. And we had followed this canal along a little ways, sorry. So they do use it for irrigation in some of the fields and the farms further south. From there, we went not very far along, maybe half an hour drive, and we saw signs for the observatory. So this is related to the Christchurch University, but we took a drive up, and just some beautiful, beautiful scenery from up top. Again, very barren trees. There's not a lot of growth on the trees up there compared to what we have up here, but it was a lovely thing. And again, one of our signs that we like to have. And another one of the observatory up there. They have a lot of dark nights, and they have observations that you could go up there in the evening and stuff, but we did not go up in the evening. From there, again, about another half hour on, and we went to Lake Tepico, and this was the Church of the Good Shepherd, well known, very famous. You'll see it in a lot of pictures. There was a bridge to get across to it, and then lots and lots of tourists at this particular church. It was a lovely spot too. And this is just after we left that church, and I was going along, and this is the picture you were referring to earlier. I just happened to snap it along the way, and can't even tell you which mountain in particular it was, but it was a lovely, lovely day that we had. So now we're heading back towards Christchurch. So heading back west to the east, but north as well. So we came down onto the plains, and there was just quite flat, a lot of countryside farming there. We went all the way up to Kaikoura, and we ended up there on February 6th, which if some of you may remember, that's Waitangi Days, where they signed the treaty. So this was the flag chosen by the Maori chiefs back at Waitangi in the 1834s, and it was the official flag to 1840. So because it was Waitangi Days, they were having a celebration there and reenacting the signing of the treaty, which is quite controversial for the Maori people there. But in this particular center, they had some very interesting artwork as well, and the stonework on the ground there. And Kaikoura had an earthquake back in 2016. So we were there in 2018. So this had happened just a few years before. So all this rock along the ocean, which is white, used to be covered by several feet of water. It's not yet covered by the lichens and the moss and everything else. So a lot of uplifting of the ground. And from Kaikoura north, we could drive now at 2018, we could drive from Kaikoura back along the east coast up to Blenheim, but this road had only just recently been opened. Before that, there was like a 12-hour detour heading back over towards the west, and then you'd go up to Nelson and then back down again. So still a lot of work to do. There's a railway track there plus the road. It's a main route down from the north and where the ferries come in to get down to Christchurch. So it was major not to have that road working again. So when we got back to Blenheim, by the time we'd been around Blenheim, or around the South Island, people said, "Oh, but did you see the Peter Jackson's museum when you were in Blenheim?" We said, "No, we didn't." Well, I guess we have to go there. So a lot of people referred us to go to this museum.
And this is the gentleman who, I guess, did the Lord of the Rings series. This reason we took this shot at this museum is because this gentleman here is from our hometown right here, and is a very well decorated pilot. So the Peter Jackson had a private collection, because he's got a lot of money, he was able to throw money at it. He's basically people all over the world going to collect and supplement his World War I collection. This is some of the modeling and the displays. The quality of it is absolutely amazing. So it's a huge museum. We asked prior to going in, how long does it take for people to get through it? And they said, oh, about 2.5 hours. Well, it literally took us 4 hours. We spent a lot of time here because of the quality of the stuff. These are all World War I artifacts. These are the dinner dishes that you would have found prior to World War I on the Zeppelin. This, of course, is, I should know it. Goring, I'm sorry, just had a pause there. He had some amazing personal items of Mr. Goring. This is Mr. Goring, Herman Goring's dinner jacket. He had a ton of things. He had his pilot's license. He had so much artifacts on the First World War that this museum is like world famous, and I can certainly understand why. We were very impressed with all the stuff. We had seen this, and they talked about this on previous of the videos, that how when the pilots went down, they would go steal their boots because these boots were so warm, they would keep their feet in the, I mean, these are World War I planes. Anyways, again, same thing. I love this thing. I've tried Buddhism, Scientology, numerology, transcendental meditation, Tai Chi, Sheng Shui, Deepak Chopra, but I find coffee works the best. Hello. Here's one more. These are my things,
Leo likes his coffee.
Listen, before I had my coffee, I didn't know how awesome I was going to be today either.
Leo likes his coffee. How can you tell? So that's the end of our South Island, but I just want to show a few more pictures and we'll take questions. Remember last time when we were talking about the North Island, and we at the very end we went to Hamilton and the gardens there, which were built in an old quarry. And this is just some of the beautiful pictures of the gardens that were there. So this is because we had spent a month in South Island, and we went back and looked at some more month in the North Island. And so that was just some of the gardens at that one place that we
it was like a theme garden. They had like 9 or 10 different themes. So this would be like a medieval theme, and there'd be like an Italian garden, there'd be like a Chinese garden, a Japanese garden. It was amazing.
And then that's us getting back home again on Harbor Air. That's the little float plane that comes into our area. So that's the end. So we can take questions, or we can just chat. I know there's lots of people have been to New Zealand before.
Well, let me open up the chat box and start with those. I'll start with the most recent and go back. So Ron weighed in several times, Ron from Australia, now in Florida, commenting on as if you were bicycling this whole thing instead of doing bicycling and driving.
Right. Sorry, Ron, that you missed the first one. We only cycled, we've cycled quite a bit, but no, in between we actually had our car. We weren't cycling the whole bit, but now we own e-bikes. So maybe next time we'll try it.
Let's see. Okay, so David Palmentier from California said, was the woman in Dunedin getting a beer from an outside dispenser?
No, that's actually just free water. It's just a water dispenser. And that's been part of Dunedin for over 100 years. That's where people would get their drinking water. That's what Spates has, contributed to the community of Dunedin. It's just a water fountain, but it's very well regarded, and everyone knows it's there.
But it would be a good idea if it was a beer dispenser. I like that idea.
Or maybe a coffee dispenser for Leo.
Yeah. Oh, he does beer too.
Oh, okay. Depends on the time of day. So George Meyer made the comment that Kia birds are not dumb. He said they can open screen doors. They opened someone's backpack on the Milford track and stole their lunch.
Yep.
They also love to eat the molding around car wind screens.
Yes, they actually can do all that. Yes.
Okay, sounds like some personal experiences thrown in there from George. And Ron was super impressed with your bicycling. Let's see. Okay, so does anybody else have some questions? Oh, well, George, you have your hand up.
I do. I was wondering, when you went through Geraldine, there was a store there called the Giant Jersey. And the guy who used to own that had taken all his knitting pieces and made a copy of the Bayeux Tapestry. And he actually was invited to take that to England to show it off. It was really a magnificent piece.
Wow, that is amazing. We did stay in Geraldine. I remember that, but we did not see that. So that's amazing. Thank you.
Does anybody else have a?
Yeah, the only thing I can say is it's amazing how they did this entire trip, and we did an entire trip, and like very few of the places are the same. It just shows just
overlap.
Very little overlap. It's so much to see on that island, and all of it gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Vistas were my favorite vistas in the world on the South Island.
I could easily go.
Yes.
I could easily go back to New Zealand. I've told Anita, I don't mind if we, put that in on the list in a couple of years, because I was really, really, really impressed. And having gone once, we tend to go a little slower than most people. So I would just pick one little town and we just rent a place for a month, and really wouldn't much matter whether it was North Island or South Island. I was impressed with the whole place. I would certainly recommend it to anyone.
Did
There
you
was
all
just a question asking, oh, go ahead.
did you all get to do the root burn or the Milford treks?
No, we didn't. Now, I was there back in 1980 by myself before I met Leo, but we weren't together at the time. And I did the Milford Trail then, but this time we just thought we can't see it all, and we just took that part out of it. But if you go over to a little bit, it's the southwest part of the South Island. Beautiful mountains and fjords and trails through there. Absolutely.
And on the other side of it is Anita and I have both lived in Alberta. So the divide between Alberta are the Rocky Mountains from Alberta to BC. So us driving through BC, we're constantly in mountains. So we just thought, well, we know that whole aspect of things. So not that we're that, we don't do glaciers or we don't hike or we don't do mountaineering, but we've seen that kind of stuff before.
It's just a funny story relating to your daughter's story in Christchurch and working there. We passed by a pizza place there that was called Son of Sam, which probably wouldn't mean anything to most people there. But coming from New York City, there was this killer who was killing people in Queens, which is where I grew up. It was near my neighborhood. And to see a store called Son of Sam, it was very unusual. And it said New York Pizza. So we went in, and it really was somebody from my area of the world opening up a pizza parlor there. And he happened to be the son of Sam, who was a pizza guy where I came from. So I got New York pizza in the middle of Christchurch. So that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a famous burger place, and I'm trying to think of the, he'll think of it. It's kind of a lamb burger. And what I loved about it was like there's blue cheese sauce on it instead of ketchup. And it was an excellent, excellent burger. And everybody lines up to get these messy, delicious burgers there
I think that was in
in
Queenstown.
Queenstown.
Fred something burger.
I don't know, something with an F. I
The
think,
weather
yeah, I
really
think,
good while you were there.
What was
What?
that?
I thought the weather in most of these pictures all looked perfect.
Yes, we did have very good weather. I think we did have a few days with some rain, but very, very few. It was pretty amazing the whole time. And again, we're there in the summer, right? December, January, February. It was great.
Yeah, we were there about the same time. I think it was
we went
November.
October, November, and beginning of December was also a perfect time to.
I didn't tell you folks, we did manage to see the Super Bowl. Like we thought about it. We knew what we were doing. You see, it's not a big deal for them. So we figured we'd find a little town where we could, watch the game. And we went early. And the guy said, well, if there's no cricket on, or if there's no rugby, or if there's no soccer, he said, I'll put it on for you. He says, but if the rest of the people want to see rugby or cricket or soccer, you're not getting that. So we went and we got there early, and I can't remember. I should know who played. I think it was LA Rams against New England is what the poster said. So don't quote me. I can never remember this stuff anyways, but it was fabulous. So we convinced the bartender to watch the game. You see, we got him hooked. We went about 3 times, but we got to watch the game. So
Yeah, I remember
sorry,
that.
we don't have any pictures of any of that, but we did watch that game. We hooked him. We got him to go for the opposing team.
Yeah, I think bungee jumping was invented in Queenstown. There's a bridge over a river.
Yeah, we drove by that, but we live very close to a bungee jumping place here as well. And I didn't jump there, and I haven't jumped here. So it's still there.
That's not on your list, huh?
No, not on my list. But you could come and stay, and then, we'll take you over.
You can get pictures.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have some questions? Does anybody else is that on their list of places to go? Just kind of do that with your hand if it is. Okay.
Visitors.
All right,
Anita,
well,
Anita, quick question. Did you put your hand in the ocean, and what was the water temperature like?
We did on the west side near Greymouth, and so that's the water side, towards Australia. It wasn't that warm at that place. We swam a little bit more in the North Island in a couple places, but not actually in the South Island. That was the only place. I guess we were close to the ocean in Christchurch, where we were staying as well. Oh, in Nelson, sorry, right at the beginning, you did see me in Nelson, and yes, that water was very warm, but it's also very large beach, and the water comes up over top. You'd have to go out a long ways to get past your knees, but I was definitely in the water there. Yeah. But generally I didn't generally find the water ocean. It's not tropical water, like if tropical places. It's more like what we have here. It's a little bit cool.
okay. Florence?
There are a lot of our members from our club did you stay in hotels? Did you stay with members? How did you choose where you were staying?
We stayed mostly with members of actually the Affordable Travel Club, and some with the Evergreen Travel Club too. We stayed about 2/3 of our time out of the 3 months. We stayed about 2/3 of the time with members of the travel clubs. If we were only going to stay one night, we tended just to take a hotel, because we just didn't have time to visit and get to know the folks. Often we'd stay 3 or 4 nights at somebody's place, and then they'd show us around and things like that, but no. So we did. And how did I find them? I had a map, and before when we were planning the trip, I just put little sticky notes on my map where all the travel club people were, and said, Well, looks like there's lots of things to do and lots of places to go. So this is where I'm going. It didn't really matter to me. It's all new. It's all going to be interesting. It's what the people can tell you about their area. We went to a couple places that we might not have gone to if we're just doing the tourist thing, but because there was travel club members there, we said, oh, let's go to this area. And they were amazing places to find and to see. We always found things to do. So it was great.
And again, we travel quite slowly. So we would go 4 days in one little area, and then we'd go maybe 100 miles, and we would spend another 2 or 3 days, and then we go another 100 miles. It's not a big country. It's just a rugged country. The roads are really, the roads, you cannot go fast because there are so many curves and hills and dips. And because we're tourists, we would always, if there were more than 5 cars behind us, we would let them pass. I mean, we're only going down the road, right?
Kathleen, you had a...
Well, actually, I love that way of traveling, is just sort of see where the members are and then find out what's in that area. And it'll be, wonderful and stuff that you haven't seen before. So you met Kathleen in the next frame over.
Yes.
Yes.
I was in New Zealand, was before the earthquake. I'm thinking around 2005 or so, stayed with a friend of the guy I work for. They were colleagues, professors. And on the north side of the South Island, at the Abel Tasman coastal tract, that water was fairly warm. And that short, a 3-day hike was fantastic. You were either up in the mountains in the woods or down in the water. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Kathleen, the reason I asked is there's a relatively famous swim where you swim from the South Island to the North Island. It's like 16 miles, and there's sharks, but there's very few people get eaten by the sharks. So,
Very few. That's good.
yeah, so that's okay.
Yeah, I just want to say if anybody is intimidated by driving or driving on the other side of the road, we were impressed with the bus system in New Zealand. The buses, if you would sort of combine a city bus and a Greyhound, they were combinations of both. So you could plop down in a city and get around, and then take a bus to another big city, and the driver would stop at the sites to see along the way and tell you what you were seeing, not constantly like an escorted tour, but you wouldn't miss the highlights, which was kind of amazing. So you don't have to plan it ahead of time. You just say, okay, I've had enough here. I'll get on the bus tomorrow and go there. And you can buy the bus, you can buy it by the hours you need. It's a very into how many hours you need to get from here to there. And the other thing I wanted to mention, in each city, there is this, their tourist sites are called I-Site, little I and S-I-T-E.
No, S-I-G-H-T.
Oh, I-Site, okay. And they had all the information about what you can do in the area and anything you needed to know. So if you want to look ahead of time and chat with anybody at those I-Sites and look into the bus system. But we were pleased when we took the buses.
That's good to keep in mind. Well, we have just a few more minutes. I really want to thank Anita and Leo. That was a wonderful presentation and gorgeous pictures, and you covered so many of the things we want to know, especially if you're going to plan a trip there. So I hope people will use this as a resource and go back and look at some of the other places that you might want to travel.